Hello everyone! Today we're going to talk about the 1993 adaptation of The Secret Garden. Sometime last year I got a hankering to watch this movie, but I made myself wait until March because it seemed like it would be perfect for springtime. This adaptation of the 1911 children's novel by Frances Hodgson Burnett was made by Polish director Agnieszka Holland. It stars Kate Maberly as Mary Lennox, a sour little English girl born and raised in India who is sent to live with her uncle Archibald Craven in Yorkshire after her parents are killed. The dark, imposing property is hardly the place for a child to flourish, but outside of Misselthwaite Manor's walls, Mary discovers a garden that's been locked up for years. After she finds the way in, she begins working to restore it, and slowly she and the garden transform. Mary also makes friends and uncovers other secrets in the house. But if her formidable uncle returns and learns what she's up to, will he send her away, or will the garden bring him peace as well? This version is, I believe, the most popular adaptation of the classic and beloved children's novel. There are several, and I'm not going to list them all because I'm bound to leave something out. I've seen two others. When I was little, I saw the 1987 TV movie with Jenny James as Mary Lennox and Derek Jacobi as Archibald Craven. And when I was a teen, I saw the 1949 film with Margaret O'Brien as Mary and Herbert Marshall as Archibald Craven. I have vague but fond memories of both. I don't think I've had much opportunity to say this on the channel in the past, but I've always loved The Secret Garden, its story, its themes, just the concept of a secret garden hidden away from the world. I did read the book. I own this copy that I got in a set of classics from a Scholastic book order. I believe my very last Scholastic book order. But when I first think of the story, I actually picture this abridged, illustrated version that was in my second grade classroom library. I didn't steal it. I think that we were doing cleaning at the end of the year, and this had gotten... I had read this a few times during the year when we had reading time in the class, and this book had gotten wedged in the bookcase somehow, I think. And when all the books were pulled out, it got ripped. There's a whole chunk of page missing here. And so my teacher, if I remember correctly, was going to get rid of it, or maybe just remove it from the collection, take it home, donate it, something. But I loved it so much that I asked her if I could take it. I was a shy, quiet kid, so I must have really loved it if I spoke up about it. And she let me have it, and it became one of my prized picture books. So when I think about the characters, many of my mental images are inspired by this. Of course, we can throw the Broadway musical into the soup as well. That's probably the version that I've had the most exposure to in the last 20 years, and my second favorite adaptation of the story. It's got great songs, powerful duets. Anytime YouTube recommends a cover of Lily's Eyes, I have to listen to it. There are some lovely performances on the original Broadway cast recording, especially from the late Rebecca Luker, whose beautiful voice was transcendent. And there's a part in How Could I Ever Know that always chokes me up. Anyway, enough about other versions. This is a really good film, and I have no problem with it being the most popular or most watched adaptation. There is a Secret Garden checklist, just like there's a checklist for every other book and its adaptations, and this ticks most of the boxes, including things like the robin, Mary's first friend, the jump rope from Martha's mother, Dickon using the word wick, Mary asking her uncle for a bit of earth. In a few ways, The Secret Garden is like Gothic literature for young people, and this version leans into that with its cinematography by acclaimed DP Sir Roger Deakins, and its setting. Misselthwaite Manor is a great, spooky house. It's huge, with many cavernous rooms, long corridors, hidden passages, and abandoned wings, and the halls echo with ghostly cries night and day. The film's got a solid cast led by young Kate Maberly, who I happen to know as the blind girl in The Langoliers. She is very good here at delivering looks that are full of resentment. Mary Lennox is kind of a challenging protagonist because she is so unlikable at first. She's a rotten, miserable brat. She's unable or unwilling to dress herself. She complains all the time. She's disrespectful to the servants and churlish to everyone else. Just awful. But underneath that hard, angry exterior, there's a lonely and neglected child. Spoiled, but not by her parents, who, according to this version, were too besotted with themselves, each other, and their military and social duties to bother with her. Warmth, affection, and love are alien to her, and since she has never learned how to respond when confronted with kindness, her instinct is to rebuff it. The only indication we have early on that her heart is not completely hardened is the way she clutches her mother's ivory elephant figurine. Any child actress who takes on this role has to convincingly balance the two halves, and Kate Maberly does a good job being absolutely insufferable and kind of dead inside, and being a vulnerable little girl you feel sorry for and eventually like as she blossoms and blooms with the flowers in the garden. Fun random fact, Kate Maberly's older sister Polly played Kitty Bennett in the 1995 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. I never would have guessed that! The late, great Maggie Smith plays Mrs. Medlock, the housekeeper, who is the closest thing to a villain this story has. She's brusque and even physically rough, but I do think she means well. She's devoting all her energy to keeping her master's son alive and in what she believes is the best health possible. I get the impression that she is terrified of failure and that this stress makes her lash out so violently at Martha and Mary, who she genuinely believes is a harmful, dangerous influence. To her, Colin's life is in the balance, and I'm not saying that this justifies her slapping Martha or grabbing Mary the way she does, but I understand where she's coming from. And the character's not without her sympathetic moments, but maybe that's because she's played by Maggie Smith, who just gives the character a touch of fragility that may not necessarily be on the page. Mary is befriended by Martha and her brother Dickon, who are instrumental to the story and very well played here, though both of them looked a little younger than I expected. Martha is a bubbly maid, undeterred by Mary's crabbiness and tantrums. She teases her about her helplessness in a good-natured way that eventually wins Mary over. And Dickon is a child of the moors who knows all about plants and flowers. He has a way with animals, and that same natural charm coaxes Mary out of her surly shell. Seriously, who doesn't love Dickon? He's sweet, he's sensitive, he's got all those baby animals, and he exudes trustworthiness, which is why within just 2 minutes of meeting him, Mary's telling him about the garden and leading him to it. The secret of the house is that Archibald Craven has a sickly, bedridden son, Colin, who is kept hidden away in his room. He's the one Mary's heard crying at all hours because Colin is convinced that he'll develop a hunchback just like his father and die young. Mary's excited when she finds him and learns they're the same age, and then she realizes he's also a spoiled brat. I've got to confess that I find this Colin so annoying. Even when he's not being a selfish, spoiled, annoying little turd of a person anymore, I still feel like, Maybe they went too far with him, because I take such a dislike to him early on, and I never really reached the point where that status changes. It's supposed to. I'm supposed to feel differently about him later on, but I'm a terrible person. The good news is that when sullen, spoiled Mary is confronted with sullen, spoiled Colin, she realizes just how irritating such behavior is. She also knows how to beat him at his own game, so they have a battle of wills, and they both come out the better for it. Mary challenges his gloomy notions and brings fresh air and sunshine and hope to Colin's sick room. Mary's uncle Archibald is played by John Lynch, who I know from his performance as Mr. Nemo in the first couple episodes of Bleak House. And when I found out that he played Archibald Craven as well, I was like, yeah, that makes sense, if for no other reason than that he's got great eyes for the part. Sad, but kind. Archibald has become reclusive after his beloved wife's sudden and tragic death. He's shut up her garden, he can't bear to see their son, and he flees the country whenever spring rolls around. It's a long time before he meets Mary, and then he's so devastated by her resemblance to his late wife that he can't get away fast enough. Still, though he's grave and abrupt, he's not harsh, and you can see the potential for gentleness there. Also, he's got amazing hair. I always wished my hair was that thick and luscious with curls at the end. Is that real, or is it a wig? By the way, it's interesting how they never emphasize the hump on his back. It's mentioned once or twice, and you can see it when he turns around, but they chose not to make a big deal out of it. I won't go over everything that happens in the rest of the film except to say that it's a touching climax, in large part because of the expressiveness of the actors, and I love that even Dickon is wiping away tears of joy. I just have a minor quibble, and that's that I find the last bit of drama with Mary running away a bit confusing, because the exact reason for her emotional eruption seems unclear. I can come up with a whole list of possible explanations, and I'm sure it's a combination of things. But I would like to know, in the mind of the screenwriter and the director and the actors, what did they think it was? Because it seems just a little unclear to me, and there's something off about it. I feel like the dialogue is more obscure than it needs to be, and I just don't know why they made it complicated at the last second there. But it's a minor quibble. Like I said, I can fill in the blanks, and that's fine, and it leads to a sweet, heartwarming moment of reunion and connection. There were a couple glaring differences from the book that I couldn't help noticing, even though it's been so long since I read it. The film features an intense scene in the beginning where Mary's hiding under her parents' bed when an earthquake hits and chaos erupts. I thought it was disease that killed her parents, so I double-checked, and yeah, they died suddenly in a cholera outbreak. Afterward, British soldiers come and find Mary all alone in this big house, and I always found this terrifying because of the implications. It's quiet, it's probably warm, it probably smells, and there's been nobody available to bury the dead. On the one hand, I feel like I don't know why they changed that. On the other hand, I feel like they probably deemed it too much for a children's movie. But it is something that really stuck with me from the book. Also, on her very first exploration of Misselthwaite Manor, Mary enters her aunt's abandoned bedroom and finds a giant key in a jewelry box. And I said to my mom, "That's not the key to the garden, is it?" She's supposed to find the key buried in some dirt with the robin's help. The same robin that leads her to the door, which is revealed when some dramatic wind pushes the ivy away. They got the door part right, but I don't know why they had to make it so easy for her to get in. It's not fair that she already knew where the key was when she found the garden door. There's no period of searching, no frustration. It's just, show me the door. There it is. I'll go get the key. I also had some other random thoughts, so here's the part of the review where I just share other observations. It's a long carriage ride to Misselthwaite, and we get two scenes, one at night, one in the daytime, and Mrs. Medlock is eating in both, which gives the impression that she has been eating out of that basket for 8 hours straight. When Mary meets the gardener, Ben Weatherstaff, I couldn't stop staring at his hat. What are those things stuck on it? On close inspection, they look like wooden carvings of animal heads. One seems to be a duck, another a dog. It's very creative, but it's odd. The film has good performances all around, but I think the most impressive actor is also the one who had the least amount of screen time, the baby in Mary's dream. How did they get this toddler to act so convincingly? Mrs. Medlock insists that people wear masks when they go into Colin's room to protect him from germs. I don't remember if this is in the book or not, but ugh, it's like a COVID flashback. I'm always excited to see a big library in a film, and when it's an adaptation of some classic British work, you can almost expect that at some point you're going to see a great library. But I've got to say, this is one of the most uninviting movie libraries I've ever seen. It's so dreary. Woof! Remember I said this was kind of gothic? I think that's especially noticeable in this very eerie shot that follows Archibald Craven's shadow as he goes down the stairs to look at Colin. I had a question about the logistics of the garden. I could actually ask a lot of questions because this garden seems enormous. I cannot get a grasp of how big it really is. It's got all this stone architecture, which is very interesting. It's a fascinating, fanciful place, as it should be, but it seems sprawling, and I really couldn't figure it out. They outdid themselves in a way. But my question has to do with the stairs. It appears in the second half of the film that the garden is set down, and you have to descend a long set of stone steps that lead into it, which makes for a bumpy ride when Colin comes out in his wheelchair for the first time and Mary and Dickon are carrying the chair down the stairs. And I remember thinking, oh man, does Archibald have to go down all those stairs too? That's going to be difficult. We never see that, though. And then it occurred to me, where did these stairs come from anyway? Because they weren't there when Mary first found the door and entered the garden. She opens the door and she goes straight in. And they're not there when she shows the garden to Dickon either. So, where'd they come from? I'm going to guess that they used multiple gardens, at least two. That the earlier scenes where the garden is dormant were filmed in one place, and then later scenes where the garden is blooming and it's amazing and it's supposed to knock your socks off, they filmed somewhere else, and they had all this dramatic architecture to incorporate. And that's fine that they have that. I like the stairs. I think they're appealing. It's another romantic facet to this whole design, to this magical garden. It's very nicely landscaped, but I did find myself saying, wait a minute, where did those come from? They weren't there before. People would have been entering the garden and then just falling straight down, and you know that it wasn't so covered in weeds that they could just walk across. They didn't dig up the stairs and dig up the whole rest of the garden in the process. The stairs didn't emerge in springtime. So it's just another little thing that I was like, interesting. Another thing I'm on the fence about is the injection of a little love triangle. There's a cute scene of Mary and Dickon planting seeds together, which has a little hand touching. I'm fine with that. But later, Colin tells her he wants to marry her so that they can be together forever, and she objects that they can't because they're cousins, silly, and he says that doesn't matter. Well, actually, Colin, I think that first cousin marriage was already being frowned upon in 1911, and it's even worse here because their mothers weren't just sisters, they were twins. That's a whole lot of shared DNA. So, no. Besides, everyone knows that Mary's supposed to end up with Dickon. Not officially, it's not canon, it's not in the book, but that's headcanon, isn't it? That's the one thing that I remember hating about the 1987 adaptation. They added this totally unnecessary flash forward at the end where adult Mary is there, and adult Colin shows up, played by a young Colin Firth, and they reunite, and they end up a couple. Dickon isn't there because the screenwriter killed him. That always made me so mad, because even when I was 8 years old, or however old I was when I first saw that movie, I knew there was no reason for that. If they were gonna do that, they might as well just have not included the scene. I don't know whose stupid, vain fantasy that was, who really wanted to push Mary and Colin together, who thought that that was the ideal happy ending here. Yeah, I'm still mad about it. But to make a larger point, the idea of any of these kids liking each other is just an unofficial fan thing. Mary might have a crush on Dickon. She might like Colin. I don't know. Nothing's stated one way or the other. It's not that type of story. So I was kind of surprised and put off by the scene where Colin is taking pictures of Mary and Dickon on the swing, and then he gets mad when they gaze at each other for a little too long, and they're ignoring him until he has a jealous outburst. Do I mind the scene? Not really, but I probably wouldn't have included Colin freaking out. That seemed excessive. Another thing I probably could do without is the ritual by the fire where Colin leads a chant to bring his father home. I get that it's in keeping with a certain mysticism, a ribbon of magic that runs through the story, but it's kind of weird and goes on too long for my taste. I really like what they added in the last couple scenes with Martha and Mrs. Medlock. It's nice that Martha stays to comfort her when she breaks down, even after Mrs. Medlock pushes her away. And then it's Maggie Smith who I find delivers the emotional kicker with the way her face softens when she sees Colin running toward the house. I take that as further proof that we're not meant to see her as an out-and-out villain. She's not like Miss Minchin in A Little Princess, also by Frances Hodgson Burnett, who really is a mean, wicked woman. Overall, I really liked the movie. I may not have come away thinking, oh, I loved that, that's my new favorite Secret Garden thing, just because there were a few choices they made that I didn't care for, and that includes a couple things that I did not mention here. But it's a very nice film. It's beautifully done, it's well cast, it's well acted for the most part, it's visually appealing, and it's a satisfying, heartwarming adaptation of the story. Those are my thoughts on The Secret Garden. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll be back next Saturday with another review. Thanks for watching.